It is July 3rd, and as you may hear, the fireworks are starting. But sadly for Inter Miami, the Club World Cup fireworks are over. Hello, everybody. It is Miami Total Football Radio time once again, right before the holiday. I am Franco Panizo, your usual co host. Joining me after a busy few weeks, and of course, it comes after a loss, is Andrea Yanes, aka our beloved Ajisita, back to help me. Yeah, we'll talk about the PSG game, but analyze the whole Club World Cup, how that serves Inter Miami going forward in the MLS season. And of course, oh yeah, there's a lot of rumors to touch on with regards to Lionel Messi's future. Does he stay with Inter Miami? Does he go somewhere else? Is he going on a loan first to a European club? A lot to dissect, Andreita. We will also talk about bigger picture for MLS. You know, what's next, right? It's not just about Messi and what's next. It's about what's next for MLS because, again, at the Club World Cup, Inter Miami was the team that got the farthest or the furthest, but not a great overall showing from the league's three representatives. But we'll get into all of that here. First, I will ask you, because I've been in the trenches with you, not for all of it, because you guys have done a lot of games, you and Jose, who is absent tonight. I'm sure he's getting ready to treat you to some fireworks tomorrow.
We have to work.
Oh yes, that's right. You guys have a game
Orlando,
tomorrow.
yes.
Yes.
Crazy stuff.
how
But
how are
glad to be
you?
back.
How are you? How are
No,
you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be able to do it. I have been not able to do this in a long time, and I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back here. Unfortunately, it's after a loss. People are gonna say I hate Inter Miami, but it is what it is. Listen, we did like 12 games in a row because between Miami and Orlando, we've been very busy. We've been to every game, and it has been fun though. I'm not complaining because it's fun. But yeah, I'm ready to talk about Inter Miami. A little bit sad today because of what happened with Diogo Jota and his brother. So I wanted to begin sending my condolences to everyone, to every Liverpool fan, Porto fan, or Portugal fan like me, because well, Franco, you know I love Portugal. My dog is name is Figo, so I always love the national team, and it was really sad, and I've been really sad all day watching all the news and videos. So I wanted to start saying that.
Yes,
And
big condolences to Diego Jota, the Liverpool fan base and organization, the club. More importantly, his family,
his family, yeah.
um, both brothers' family, because they lost not one son, they lose two sons today in that terrible, tragic car accident in Spain. Based on what I read, they were on their way to the coast of Spain so that Diogo could catch a flight. I'm sorry, a ferry because he couldn't fly or was advised not to fly. He had recent, I think, lung surgery, if I remember what I read correctly. So they were in car on their way to drop him off at the ferry, and unfortunately, a horrific accident claims the lives of two sons. You know, obviously in the soccer community, there's an impact, but for a family there, a father, a brother, two sons also is a big loss, and you know that family's going to be grieving and mourning for a long time. So you know, a sad way to start today, right? It was the news we woke up to in the soccer world, but our condolences and um, just unfortunate tragic events that have taken place. Andrea, of course, I mean, I don't know what to say with regards
Yes,
to that. I know that there's probably going to be more and more said in the coming days. Um,
yeah, it's just horrible, and especially for his family, as you said, his sons, and his brother, his mother, his father. It's just horrendous, terrible news, and something that doesn't happen very often in the football world. So it has it's a news that has surprised and impacted everyone in the world because Of course, he played for a big team. He just won two titles. He won the Premier League and he won the Nations League with Portugal. So it's really unfortunate and it's really sad. And it just if I take something from these days, that you have to live your life and be happy, because you never know how much time you have left. And
Yeah,
condolences to everyone, and especially to his family.
absolutely. We'll switch gears here. Talk about Inter Miami.
What do you
Obviously,
want to talk about? Because I I want to talk about a lot of stuff. So
well,
you
there's a
are the
lot to talk
boss.
about. There's a lot to
You
talk. I'm
have
not the boss. I'm
to
not the boss. I just
decide where to begin.
I'm not the boss. I just have to, dictate the convo because, otherwise we'll just talk for 2 hours and then the listeners get mad and you guys get mad because it's, you guys got other things to do like cover 1,000 games. Um, I do want to say this. Obviously, we talk about a game and it is our job and it's fun and but it is work. But bigger picture, there's more important things out there. Bigger
100%.
picture. So yeah, you never know when's your last day. Obviously, people expect to have a normal day and things don't go as planned. So yes, absolutely, enjoy every day. Live it to the fullest. I know it's sometimes we get just caught in the day to day and the
Mhm.
the routine, but absolutely, just if this is a reminder, then let that be the reminder. All right, Andrea, we'll switch gears. We're gonna do this in somewhat of a chronological order here. We're gonna try to. We'll probably bounce around at different points, but we'll start with Inter Miami and their round of 16 match in Atlanta. I was there in attendance at Mercedes-Benz Stadium as Inter Miami falls 4-0. No David versus Goliath fairy tale. Here, PSG, a very powerful PSG, takes care of business pretty easily, pretty swiftly against an overmatched Lionel Messi and co. All four goals come in the first half for Inter Miami in Atlanta, Georgia, this past Sunday. Second half, it does seem like, and I mean, I don't think there's many people that would argue with this or disagree with this, but if there are some, there's always some. Luis Enrique took the foot off the pedal. He had the PSG players take their foot off the pedal and not no meterle tanta gasolina. They played at a lesser intensity that allowed Inter Miami to find some of the game or more of the game, and they had their moments in the attack, especially Messi. Um, but realistically, this was a one-sided affair. The first half was a bloodbath. I think I tweeted that out. I know I tweeted that out. It was about as uneven match as we could expect. It was by and large the type of game that we thought. I think most of us thought, unless you're like the most diehard Inter Miami fans, most people thought Inter Miami was going to suffer goleadas, lopsided defeats like that throughout the tournament. They exceeded expectations with their performances. They exceeded expectations with the results up until this game. This game was a dose of reality for MLS. Now, I won't say for Inter Miami. Inter Miami kind of knew going into it that it was a very big challenge, right? And they didn't make any secrets about that. You can even tell after the tone, after the Palmeiras draw, that they were like, "Damn, we've got PSG." So, Andrea, I mean, what were your thoughts on the game? Obviously, it was pretty much a 45-minute affair. The second half was played de
Just because they,
obligación, just out of
yes,
obligation. They had to play it because
100%.
it's part of the rules, but the game was over. Even Mascherano acknowledged that in the post game press conference where he says, at halftime you don't really think you're gonna have any chance of coming back from 4-0 down. So, Andrea, what were your just overall sensations, takeaway, sensaciones?
Yeah, I agree with you that it was just one half game. PSG was done after the first 45 minutes. They didn't need to do anything else. I think Inter Miami had two shots in the second half, one of Messi and one of Suarez, that were not even really dangerous, and it's a reality. Sadly, Inter Miami had an amazing group stage because they at the end they had an accessible group because of the performances the other teams had, not as we were thinking beforehand, right? But they survived the group, but they were as expected, the worst team in the octavos de final in the round of 16. They were the worst team, and the scoreline tells that story. And I think if PSG had played like they did in the first half, this could have ended even 10-0, 8-0, 12-0, whatever you want to say, because it was just obvious that in the second half they were just chilling. They had opportunities. Ustari had a couple of good saves. They missed a lot, but seriously, PSG has an amazing team, and it just showed that Inter Miami is not there at that level, that MLS is not there at that level, and it really showed that Inter Miami was the weakest team from that round. I think if you see the other score lines, even the other CONCACAF team, Monterrey, played a lot better. They deserve at least to tie, but you cannot say that from Inter Miami because they didn't even have a possibility. Then you saw Flamengo, who was the other American continent team who lost against Bayern. They scored 2 goals and they were very close to tying the game at one point, but Inter Miami was never there. And unfortunately, that's the reality. That's the reality, and I think the if you can take something about this Club World Cup and the Inter Miami advancing to the round of 16 is that MLS, the league, needs to do more to make their teams better, because their teams a team from their league got this chance to get to this stage in the tournament and didn't even have an opportunity to compete. There was zero opportunity from Inter Miami since the 6th minute when they scored the first goal. We all knew that that was it. Nothing. They were not gonna come back, and that's unfortunate. But I think even though they lost in this manner, they should be happy. The players should be happy because they did well. They did a well round up a group stage, and they lasted until they had to last because uh, they didn't have any possibility against PSG.
So I think that's one thing that in the analysis has to be taken into account, right? That they didn't go up against just any round of 16 opponent. They went up against arguably the best, if not, the top two, top four, if you really want to be debatable, argumentative, or want to have a big debate, in terms of talent, right? They faced one of the best teams on paper, and they are the reigning European champion. So that definitely goes into it. If they had played maybe Botafogo, maybe they have a better chance, or maybe they look more competitive. But that was not the case. They played PSG, and clearly they're far, far, far away from that level, even with Lionel Messi on the field. The game itself, I mean, like you touched on, it just shows the reality of where MLS is today, right? It's still a league that it has financial restrictions that limits you in a very big way to compete internationally, right? Salary cap, the rules, the mechanisms. I wrote about this for 442 actually, because this tournament is going to serve as a look in the mirror for MLS in terms of what they want to be as a league. Do you want to be a league that can actually compete internationally in these competitions, or do you just want to continue to have parity within the league and all these roster mechanisms? And great, it's great for your regular season maybe, but when you're playing international competitions, not only like the Club World Cup, but also like the Champions Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup, where you have won only once in the last 20 or so years, right? So do you want to continue to not be competitive on the world stage in terms of what actually matters? Because, the quality of a league isn't measured by social media engagement. It isn't measured by followers. It isn't measured by views on YouTube or X/Twitter videos. It's measured by performances on the field. And Inter Miami, for as good a group stage as they had, they crashed into a wall. It was a pipe dream to think that they could pull it off. Again, it was going to have to be David versus Goliath type of fairy tale, and well, no, Goliath said no chance here. Just smush David from the beginning, and there was no chance for Inter Miami to come back. So, from a performance level, you can't. There's not much to say there. I mean, it was impressive. I don't know how how it was from the TV, but from the stadium, it was impressive. How PSG moves the ball so quickly, so precisely, so many football ideas. And again, these are the best of the best,
It's
in
just
terms of
another
club
level.
football. It's another
It's another
four or
level.
five levels.
And they touch first touch. They don't even think about where they are going. First touch, first game, first touch, first place, and they just play like that. Inter Miami doesn't. Unfortunately, that's not the style. And we can talk about the league, but also I think the team has a great responsibility because when I said the team, I said management. I say management and not Javier Mascherano, but the sporting director, the presidents, because they let go of Julian Gressel and Robert Taylor,
Oh, Andrea, but that
alleging
was
that they,
years
they
ago.
no, alleging they were gonna bring people here and they didn't bring anyone. Because to give you an example, PSG also plays Seattle Sounders, and Seattle Sounders didn't receive 4 goals, and they have a worst roster in paper than Inter Miami, right? So if you analyze that, it's not acceptable to have Seattle Sounders look better against PSG than what Inter Miami did, right?
But it's
Um,
also a group stage.
and
See,
and
that's where I would
that's
disagree with that, because the group
but
stage is
PSG lost the
different.
first game. PSG lost
Correct.
the first game against Botafogo, so they had to win that game, and they won it just 2-0 against an MLS team who has a worse roster
But
than
it's
Inter Miami.
different in the group stage, because in the group stage you have to navigate through 3 games. In a do or die game, you're playing with much more intensity because there is no tomorrow. If you lose that game, then it's over for you. So I think it's a bit different. I think if the Seattle Sounders had met um PSG in the knockout rounds, then I think it's a completely different scoreline. But yes, I think it is. Look, it is.
I think if there's someone algo que reprochar is to MLS, obviously, because of the rules. They didn't change, and they haven't changed any rules since Lionel Messi arrived. Only expand that gam, and that's really nothing. And and the management from Inter Miami, from the sporting side, not the team, not Mascherano, not the team, because they let go of players, alleging that they were gonna bring reinforcements for this Club World Cup, and they didn't bring anything that could have made this team better. So they didn't, and unfortunately, this is the result. But in the end, when you analyze the Club World Cup, they went through the group stage, and they just lost against PSG, and no, I don't think
There's
there
no
was
crying.
anyone there. There's not anyone who would have thought that Inter Miami had any possibility against PSG. Not even with Messi. I don't think people who are saying had a thought that Inter Miami was gonna beat PSG, because that simply just doesn't happen. It is like I said, it's one of the worst, the most uneven matchups of the round of 16 that we saw. And unfortunately for them, they are out. But I think for the players, for the team, this was a good experience. But I agree with you that now it's time to move to the next level, and to take this league, not only Inter Miami, but the league, to the next level, because you saw LAFC, you saw Seattle, and even though Inter Miami qualified for the next round, their performances are not like memorable performances that you're gonna remember for years to come.
So again, we're gonna jump around. So we'll come back to Inter Miami. But yeah, bigger picture, like we just touched on here, I think MLS is going to have to make a big decision, right? Where do they want to sit in the ecosystem of world football? Do they want to be one of the best leagues in the world? And again, that comes with investing money in players and being competitive. Um, or are they going to just accept the fate, which is fine, right? It's perfectly fine. But you have to make your aspirations clear and make sure that your actions match your words. And that is, we're just going to be, a middle of the table. Sometimes I don't know if I know the table, but a mid-level league where we bring in some young players and we transfer them abroad, but we don't have aspirations to be truly competitive at the elite levels. We don't care to have a seat at the table of world's best. We're not interested in that. Is it that, or is it? Do they want to be a league that actually tries to reach that stage, tries to be as competitive as some of these other leagues. Obviously, there's a lot of steps that MLS has to take to get there, but um,
Yeah, I
you know,
think this Club World Cup just showed you that MLS is not really there because
it's not there. We know it's not there. We
we
know
saw
it's not there.
teams from Japan who even though got eliminated were show better play than Inter Miami. We got teams from Africa like Mamelodi Sundowns. Like what I was saying just a couple of minutes ago, Inter Miami was historic to go to the round of 16, yes, but no one is going to remember. You remember the performances, the things you can see a future in it. And one of those things were the African teams, especially Mamelodi Sundowns. Everyone is speaking about them because they played well. They made an impact in this tournament. But Inter Miami, unfortunately, even though they qualified to the round of 16, no one is talking about, oh, how good Inter Miami is, how good do they play, how bright future Inter Miami has. Everyone was just talking about Messi, and it is what it is, of course, because it's Messi. But there was nothing more memorable than just that, just Messi's team making it to the round of 16, right? And that's unfortunate for the league and for Inter Miami because this was an opportunity to showcase something else or to bring something else.
You would have liked to have seen more fight from Inter
Yeah,
Miami in the game. Like you knew they would lose, and maybe they lose by a decent margin. Maybe it's not tight, but you would like to see a little bit more competitiveness from the MLS team. But it wasn't the case. But again, it goes down in large part. Now there's other contributing factors, the matchup. You know,
yeah, of
does
course.
Inter Miami have the physical aspects to push PSG at that stage? Is not only were PSG players technically and tactically superior, I mean, they did everything better, right? They passed the ball better, they
Yes.
moved better. Their off the ball movement at the stadium, you know, you might not see on the broadcast was ridiculous. I mean, it was fantastic the way they moved off the ball to find the spaces when they were
And
on
the
the ball.
PSG is just a team. Mm-hmm.
Los movimientos, you know, fake to go one way with the shoulders, go the other way. It was so smooth. The diagonal switches to open play. It was a completely combinations. The understanding. It was completely different level. But it goes back to MLS. And look, David
Yeah.
Beckham. I wrote about this again here in that article for 442. You can find it at 442. It's titled Inter Miami's Ugly Club World Cup Exit Raises Questions About MLS's Future in the Global Game. There was a quote that David Beckham shared, or a comment he made to DAZN, the tournament broadcast rights holder, before kickoff on Sunday. And this is part of a larger comment he makes, but he says, quote, the league is bringing a lot of young, talented players through, and that's ultimately the goal. But what you actually want to do is you do not want to sell them on all the time. You want to keep them, and you want to have a league that then goes on to be one of the great leagues in the game. That is ultimately our goal. End quote. So Beckham, even before the match, it was like he was bracing for an ass kicking. And he's saying, we wanted, like he and Jorge Mas and MLS or Inter Miami ownership want a different MLS. They want an MLS where you can be competitive internationally. But again, does MLS, when they get to their board of governors meeting, do they
I
actually
don't think
sit down
all
and
owners want that. Yes,
they don't, right?
that
But
is a problem of having
who
a
wins
closed
out?
league.
So who
That
wins out, right? That's
right
going to
now,
be
the other owners, the owners that don't want the league to be an open system, and I get it because the majority of the owners, you see, the exceptions to those rules are owners who are not NFL owners. You see that in Miami. You see that in LA. You see that in, but Atlanta is the exception because it's the same owner of the NFL, but he is someone that likes to invest in soccer, and you invest in soccer, but other than that, all the other owners have no interest in that. Have no interest in that. For example, owner of Colorado Rapids, who is also the owner of the Nuggets, who is also the owner of Arsenal, and everyone in who is an Arsenal fan hate them. They don't have any interest in investing in opening up the league and in spending more money. They really don't. And unfortunately for the league, those type of owners are the majority and not the type of owners like in LAFC or Inter Miami with Jorge Mas.
well, that's why this is a big point. This is a big
Exactly.
moment for the
But
league to
for me,
decide what their future is.
they don't have enough of people like Jorge Mas or other owners or Black in Atlanta or other owners who want to invest and want to open. They just have owners who want to their teams to exist and to have a profit and for the league to survive.
Right. So
They don't want
that's
to risk and
so
for that to
those
risk for to take that risk is it's very hard. It's very hard.
so for those two ideas to go against each other at the table when the owners get together, and I know it's been a topic of conversation for some years now, but now you're at the point where you really have to make a decision which way you're going to go. Is the other way completely shut out? You completely close out the idea of being a top league in the world just to focus on having parity within MLS, or do you try to open up the purse strings a bit more? From what I've heard, there are changes coming, but they are pretty modest. It's not going to be a complete free reign for how to build teams or how to construct rosters. It's going to be some changes that help open things up, but nothing too drastic. But that will come relatively soon. There's a transfer window that opens up this month in MLS, so maybe we get some news relatively soon.
I don't think we're gonna get news. They have to vote on that. So I think we might get news when they have a meeting and they vote on it. Real change.
There's a meeting this month. There's a meeting this month. Now for MLS, I mean, if you stick with there's a lot of challenges in MLS, right? You can just exist, right? You can just be there and you don't have to be competitive because there's no threat of relegation. So you can just exist. But then you're going to hit a ceiling in terms of your profits, right? Like the world of football, as we've seen during the Club World Cup, teams are spending and investing more and more money into signing players and to getting better. There's more and more money being spent in the world of football. And if MLS is going to stay on par or catch up, then they've got to invest just as much money or continue or invest more than what they're investing now. If they don't, then you risk of falling further and further from that top level. We'll see what decision they make. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. I think MLS, my opinion is that they should open things up. I think that they will reflect on things, look in the mirror, have some self-analysis, be autocríticos, and maybe open things up. I don't think it'll be drastic, but maybe we'll start to see some changes. Maybe not to the level we'd like, but maybe
I just think they're gonna add a couple of designated players, and that will be it. Things will remain the same. We will not see change like it needs to happen. MLS is very comfortable just making the money for teams to survive and for the league to survive. And
but the problem is that a lot of teams aren't making money. A lot of MLS teams don't make money in terms of how they run their business.
Inter Miami made money. Seattle Sounders made money in this tournament. Sure. The money is just going to MLS. It's not going even to the teams. It's going to MLS. So the money that Inter Miami and that Seattle Sounders and that LAFC got for being in and even for losing, because you got money even for losing games. Each game you got paid. You got paid the participation fee, and then each game that you play you get paid extra. All that money is going to MLS, and listen, with that money, teams like Colorado Rapids, teams like Montreal, teams like the worst teams in the league are gonna keep surviving, because Toronto is gonna keep surviving. Because
I don't know if it gets dispersed across
to the league. It goes to
I don't know about
it's the same as baseball. Why do the Marlins survive? No one goes to the Marlins. 5,000 people.
But I'm not sure that that's the case, Andrea.
They survive because the league is a closed system.
But I think everyone earns the money. I think the team earns the money and they can invest it in any way they want, aside from the sporting side, right? Because there's limitations there. All the same, it's clear that the at least in my opinion, that the parity model as it exists today is outdated. It helped MLS find stability financially, but now they need to take the next step. They need to take the next step if this sport is going to grow at all. Look, the World Cup is next year, right? And they haven't done much to capitalize
No
on Lionel
changes.
Messi's
And
team's
after the
time
World
here.
Cup, no one is going to care about MLS. No one is going to care about football in the United States. It's just as simple as that. It's up to the people in the United States to keep the sport growing. And they have, this is the moment they have to act, because this is the moment after the World Cup, after Messi is gone, and after the World Cup passes, no one is going to care about the sport here, because then the World Cup is going to be in Spain and in Portugal, and they're gonna care for the teams over there, and no one is going to remember the United States. Then it's in Arabia, and everyone is going to talk about the teams in Arabia, and no one is going to care about here. So this is the chance that the sport in this country has to move it forward and to really have a positive impact for the future, because uh, right now it seems bleak, because you see all this growth around the world, and MLS is just still the same, still competing, still trying to take money and bring fans in wrong ways, still just concentrating in Mexico and not opening up in other places, and just surviving a pure marketing, from a marketing standpoint. Just like you said, it doesn't matter how many views your goal has, how many followers, if you cannot even beat um, any low tier Mexican team. And for me, it says a lot that the league is, for example, let me tell you something, that All-Star game, all the same, how many years are they gonna keep playing the Liga MX All-Stars? That is just so boring, so not innovative.
It's clear. I think
It's
it's clear that MLS. I mean, look, it's a business, right? But I think it's clear that they prioritize money over growing the sport. I think that that's
yes, a
clear
hundred
to
percent,
most people. Whether they can come out and say whatever they want in interviews and then talk about point to where they have grown the game. I mean, realistically, you look at the decisions that are made, and it's more about money than about growing the game.
a hundred percent.
There's been a lot of calculated decisions. There's been measured growth, which are good things. But at this point, where MLS is, talking about 30 years, 3 decades in, it's time to take that
With
next step,
Messi.
in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Brad in the comment section says it's easier to invest in a place where the sport is popular. The profit is much bigger. I'm even sure championship teams in England earn so much more than the best teams in MLS. Ed Bartra says maybe we need MLS and USL to merge and do promotion relegation. Tom says, truth is that owners are hesitant to invest in MLS. There's more money in NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL. That's all true. That's all true. And that to me, we got to get back to Inter Miami, but that to me is my final thought on this portion of it is that's the most concerning part. Like, this was a big tournament in terms of how many people were watching this around the world. And I don't really think it resonated
Mm-hmm.
outside of our American soccer bubble of
Mm-hmm.
fans, journalists, teams, coaches. Like, outside of that bubble, I don't think it really resonated all that much in the bigger US media landscape. Like, was ESPN talking about the Club World Cup in their daily talk shows? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't really
No,
watching, but I don't
I
think you
think
heard
that
Stephen A.
yes.
Smith. I don't think you had Stephen A. Smith
I
making
think
hot takes
it
about.
got attention, but attention for other clubs, not for Inter Miami. That's what I was telling you. Inter Miami went to the round of 16, but no one is remembering and no one is
No,
talking
no, no. But
about it.
what media outlets in the? I'm not talking about like the random media outlet that sent someone to cover a game for rain. I'm talking about in the radio talk shows, on the TV talk shows, the English speaking ones, right? Were they talking about the Club World Cup this summer? I mean, correct me. I mean, if you guys know,
Yeah, they
please
were,
let me know. I didn't
but
see
of
it.
the big
I didn't see
teams,
it.
not about teams in MLS.
I didn't see it. But all the same, with regards to the MLS performance, so MLS had 3 teams: Inter Miami, LAFC, the Seattle Sounders. Only Inter Miami made it out of the group stage. In total, those 3 teams finished with a 1 win, 6 loss, 3 draws record. So that was the combined results between all 3 of them. The accumulated goal differential was -11. MLS team scored 7, and they had 18 scored on them. So not great numbers. Not great numbers. I know Inter Miami was the feel good story for MLS and the highlight, especially if you're an Inter Miami fan, but those numbers are not impressive. There's going to be more Club World Cups. Will they be like this? We'll see. But if they are, and you want to be in there and you want to avoid um, another showing like this, where, okay, cool, you competed and you didn't get blown out, but if that's that's the bar you want to
The
set for
standard.
where you need to be, then I mean that shows your true ambitions. You've got to aspire to be more than that, in my opinion. But anyway, going back to Inter Miami, we've talked about the PSG game. Thoroughly outplayed, outclassed. There's no crime in that. PSG's one of the best teams in the world,
Every
and
PSG player is better, even the Messi. Messi is Messi, of course. He has won everything, but you could see that Messi is just not the same. Busquets is not the same, and the players that they were, if you compare them to the midfield in PSG, is miles
but
ahead,
but
miles
in the
ahead.
over in the totality of the tournament, we're gonna listen to Javier Mascherano here in just a minute. Um, Lengthy response in his post game press conference, but in the totality of the Club World Cup for Inter Miami, I mean, what did you take away from their overall showing, right? What did you think about their overall showing? Clearly, they surprised, again, most of us. Unless you were a diehard Inter Miami fan, I don't think anyone outside of that predicted Inter Miami to get out of the group, but they did, and they were 10 minutes away from winning the group. They managed the group stage about as well as they could have. Aside from maybe those last 10 minutes against Palmeiras, they did as well of a job as you could expect. Did they have a poor first half against Al Ahly? Yes. But on the balance of everything, they had as good a group stage showing as you could have expected. And they won a game. They were unbeaten through the 3 games. We'll talk about the performance levels, but overall, it was an ugly exit. But for me, I think it was obviously a very good showing in terms of the results and exceeding the expectations. I think you have the same opinion. We'll talk about the performances. I know you and I weren't of the belief that they played incredibly. They competed well. Don't know if they played amazing, but what were your thoughts on the overall Club World Cup, which again ends with an ugly exit, but over the course of the 4 matches, more positives than negatives.
Yeah, I think the Club World Cup is gonna end up being a positive thing for Inter Miami because they went through the group stage. No one expected them to do it, especially after the first half against Al Ahly, and for them to be able to turn that game around and get that draw, I think was massive. I think if people are gonna remember anything, it's especially for Inter Miami fans, right? Because the match, the result was good, but that Porto match was not a memorable match. That, let's say, that you're gonna remember for a long time because Inter Miami was dominant and
I don't know
and
about that. I think that
and
might be that's. I think that's the biggest win in team history.
no, that's the biggest win in team history, but I'm talking about the tournament. It's not one of the memorable
Oh, I
matches
mean,
of the tournament. That's what I mean. So it was a good win and an excellent showing, an excellent result for Inter Miami, especially after going a goal down. For me, that's the positive thing that they can get. Then against Palmeiras, I think it was a good result, but you have to take that game for what it was. Palmeiras didn't play with their starting lineup. They were already thinking they won the group. They didn't even play with a striker until the last minutes. And when they brought all the starters in, you saw the difference and you saw what happened. That Inter Miami ended up asking for the time, and Ustari ended up saving uh, the last goal, right? I think for me, the best things for Inter Miami, I really liked the young players. I really liked Noah Allen. I really liked Ian Frey. And I really liked Velasco Segovia. I think they were the players that showed something, players that were interesting from Inter Miami, and I think that was the most positive thing that the team can take. That scouts, I am sure, are watching those, especially those 3 players, and hopefully Inter Miami can get something out of this Club World Cup and become a team that sells young players, because we haven't seen that, unfortunately, from this team. They haven't sold anyone besides Snyder Borgelin, I think, to Europe. So
I think they cut him. I think they cut him, and then he just signed. I don't think they sold him.
well, yeah, I don't remember exactly, but they haven't sold anyone just from the academy and
I
all
don't
of
think
that.
they've sold anyone yet.
Yeah, so that would be awesome if that that is something that comes from this because I really liked Ian Frey before he got injured. I really liked Noah Allen before he got injured also, and I really liked Velasco Segovia, who in MLS was not having as a constant showing, but in this Club World Cup you could see his quality. And listen, I 100% think that the players were more motivated for this Club World Cup than they were for MLS. I
So
think
you
that's
you you
that's just
jumped
not
ahead. You
that
jumped
is
ahead, but
yeah,
you got to what I was going to ask you next, because if we both agree that Inter Miami exceeded expectations. I mean, I don't think we have to agree. I think it's clear that Inter
it's
Miami
clear.
exceeded
Yeah,
expectations.
hmm
No one thought,
no one
again,
can
not
argue
even
otherwise. Correct.
not even Federico Redondo's parents probably thought. Not even they thought that Inter Miami was going to get out of the group. I mean, not even Messi's family thought that they were going to get out of the group. You had Javier Mascherano abriendo las paraguas, opening the umbrellas, they say in
Yes.
Spanish, to kind of brace for the rainfall before the group stage began. But they did it. They got through with a uneven performance in the first game against Al Ali, a solid come from behind win against FC Porto, and then a very good showing that leads to a late draw, a bittersweet draw against Palmeiras before getting blown out by PSG. But again, given that we expect Inter Miami to be the underdog in those matches, I mean, how did this
Correct.
happen, Andrea? How did this happen? How did Inter Miami go from being a team that was mired in a poor run of form before the Club World Cup? Yes, they won a couple of games right before the tournament began in MLS play. But how did they go from that team that was so incredibly shoddy at the back, that was not playing at a very high level, to being the only MLS team that competed to the point that they got a lot of points in their group, made it out of the group, and then obviously make it to the round of 16, the knockout rounds. How did that happen, Andrea? In your opinion, in your analysis,
Motivation.
what
Motivation.
happened there?
Motivation. Players wanted to show themselves because they know this tournament was gonna be watched in over the world, over the world. So, um, I think. What was the comment? I didn't see.
LK said Diego Gomez was sold. No, so that
Yeah,
is true.
but Diego Gomez is not from the academy.
No, but he is an Inter Miami
Yeah,
player that came here
yeah,
and
yeah. But I was
then
talking from the
served as a
academy.
well.
Yeah,
That's the other. I
yeah.
was talking in
That's
general.
why I said Borgelin because he's one of the academy, and
Is
they
he
haven't sold
academy?
anyone from the academy.
I don't know if Borgelin was academy, but LK
Yeah, they
says
said that he was.
Diego Gomez did
Yeah,
come
was
here
from.
and then
Hmm.
trampoline from Inter Miami to Europe. So that's a good shout. My memory went blank on that one. So good shout, LK. But Andrea, sorry. Continue with
Motivation. I think they knew that this tournament was gonna be watched. They were playing against. They were in the same spot in as the game's biggest star. You got PSG, you got Kvaratskhelia, Nuno Mendes, Vitinha, who are players that are gonna end up in the top 10 of the Balón de Oro this year. It's as simple as that. You got that as motivation. You got Palmeiras, who come from winning two Copa Libertadores 2 years in a row of winning Brasileirao and winning everything. Who have amazing players who are on a step ahead of Inter Miami, of most of Inter Miami's players. So that motivated players. I think that motivated the players, and you could see that on the field because I even asked Mascherano, this is not the same team that played against Vancouver, that lost against Vancouver, that was outplayed against Vancouver. And for me, he got an answer like, "Oh, it's not me, it's on the players." But for me, that's just because of motivation. That this the players know that this they had something to play for here, and MLS simply does not motivate them. Does not motivate them as this tournament did, and it's unfortunate, but I think that's the truth.
so I think, like an onion, como una cebolla, there's a lot of layers to it, and I'm fascinated to talk about it. I think motivation is one of the elements, but I would say not to the same degree or in the same manner that you're saying. I think because it is teams that are at a higher level, I think it starts with Los Cuatro Fantásticos. Although Jordi Alba missed at least half, if not more than half, of Inter Miami's run in this tournament. They know that they're playing at a higher level, so they were more motivated. Talking about the big four, the star four players, the Barcelona quartet, the four Fantastic Four. Those four players knew that they were playing at a higher level, and they knew what it takes, what this level demands, and they took their game up a notch from what you see in the MLS season, where it's a grind, it's 34 games, it's not the most attractive soccer. I think they took their game up a notch, and that was contagious to the rest of the group. I think, yes, there is a desire from each player, especially you saw from Ian Frey, maybe Noah Allen, even Benjamin Kremaski to want to perform at this stage because the world's eyeballs are on each match. So there's personal motivation, but I do think collectively the raise in desire from the big names, the star players, that was, that infected the other teammates to want to step their game up a bit too. Because we saw a Benjamin Kremaski in this tournament that was different from the Benjamin Kremaski who sometimes can't even trap a ball cleanly in MLS play. We saw a completely different Federico Redondo. He did have his mistakes here and there, but he's playing against a higher level opposition. But we didn't see the silly, simple mistakes that we see so regularly in MLS play. The players took
against Palmeiras, we saw them.
We saw it, right? But again, they're playing a better level of opponent. Yeah. But you didn't see it over the course of 90 minutes like we do sometimes in MLS, where then they get hit.
100%.
But I also think, aside from motivation, I think another part that helped Inter Miami here was the role that they had. They were not the favorites, right? They're not expected to be the team that is on the ball, that dictates the tempo, that has the boss possession. They're not that team, right? The other teams are expected to be the better teams. Inter Miami was in an underdog role, and I think that helped free them up a bit, right? That helped not feel so much pressure, not feel so much esa mochila. You don't feel that backpack there, that heavy backpack. It allows you to play more freely. Like Ian Frey in the first game against Ali, and I talked to him about this before the second game against Porto in an interview there, pregame, match day -1. You saw him do cutbacks with his, like flicks, like Cristiano Ronaldo-esque flicks. Now, I'm not comparing him to Cristiano Ronaldo, but you saw those type of flicks. You saw him take a left-footed shot from distance that you normally don't see him take. You saw him trying to do different things. I think they just felt freer, and I think that allowed them to compete better. And again, they also, because they're not the favorites, all right, we don't have nothing to lose. We have nothing to lose. Go out there and compete and do what you can, put in a good effort, and see where that falls. And I think that helps them. I think that helps this group, because when they are the team that has the boss possession, they're the team that has to carry the game into the opponent's half, then that leaves them exposed at the back. You didn't, like the Al Ahly game, they took a half each, right, in terms of who was better on the ball. The Porto game, Porto was on the ball probably as much as Inter Miami was, or just very, very close there. Palmeiras was the better team on the ball. Inter Miami just found goals in transition, right? And one, individual moment of brilliance from Luis Suarez, which goes back to the motivational point. Because that goal you don't see from Luis Suarez in MLS, right? You don't see him just
that's pure
bulldoze his way past two defenders on the dribble before ripping a left-footed shot, turning back like that. That clearly he's motivated and taking his game up a level from what we see in MLS. I think one more factor that also plays in here, and I think we could go down the list and we could be here all night, but we've got fireworks to get to. Or barbecues to prepare for tomorrow. Although it's going to be bad weather. But anyway, I think another factor that plays a part here, aside from the underdog role and aside from the motivation, is the matchups that Inter Miami had. Now, again, PSG game aside, PSG completely a different opponent. Physically as good, if not better. And better for sure. Technically better, tactically better, across the board better, right? So take that game out. The other three games, Inter Miami was able to play and also be more organized. Because they weren't the team that was carrying the game forward, they didn't have as many moments where the back line was super high and they were exposed at the back. We saw it in the first half against Al Ahly. Al Ahly was a more athletic team, a more direct team, and that gave Inter Miami a lot of problems. Oscar Ustari had to stand on his head in order for Inter Miami to avoid una goleada in that first half. But in the other two games, even though Palmeiras had more of the ball and they were more dangerous looking, they didn't create clear-cut chances until very late, not dangerous
until
ones.
they brought the A team.
But that's because Inter Miami also was very organized, and they were able to stay organized and compact because they
I
weren't
don't think.
carrying the game
I think
forward.
the game that you can analyze that that I would agree
The
with you
Porto
is
game
the
for sure,
Porto game. The Porto game. For
absolutely.
me,
They played the two a
that
two.
was the
They
yeah,
played the two
exactly.
a two.
That was the best game for me. The Palmeiras game, I cannot analyze it that way just because it was completely different when the other team brought their players, their starting lineup, and from the 70th minute, Inter Miami just became the Inter Miami that we know, and was hanging out. Also, Mascherano made some changes in defense because he thought, oh, I'm getting the result, and with the result in the other game, I'm sure he was aware of what was happening in New York with Al-Ali and Porto. But for me, that is, since they couldn't close that game, I cannot see it in the same way that I see the Porto game, because in the Porto game, I think that was just a game that they learned how to they fought and they learned how to close against Porto, because Porto then brought in the end they were trying, and Inter Miami was just waiting, but Inter Miami held on and got that win. That and as you said, and I agree with you, that was the most important, and the most important and the most awesome team win in their history. It is what it is. um
But
so I think,
the Palmeiras game, Andrea, again, Palmeiras was the better team from the run of play. Whereas in
yeah,
the game
exactly.
against Porto, you could say it was either way, maybe Inter Miami by an edge or Porto by an edge from the run
But
of
they
play.
competed.
But
They
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 competed
competed well, because in the Palmeiras game, I think Inter Miami had the two chances that they had, and
exactly,
a couple more, one shot more from
exactly.
Messi,
But
but they
why?
didn't have
But
anything more.
analyzing why was Palmeiras, despite having the ball, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
saying you and I agree that Inter Miami had two chances and they put them
Mm-hmm.
away, why wasn't Palmeiras able to do more with all the possession that they had? And that's because Inter Miami had an
Yeah, they were
organized defense
organized.
because they're
Mm-hmm.
not playing the high line with them
Yeah, I
having the
agree with that.
ball and playing in the opponent's half, leaving the defense exposed with a lot of spaces in behind. They were able to stay as tight as possible. It doesn't mean that they
Mm-hmm.
were airtight. It wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
Ziploc bag. They still had holes. They still had their weaknesses, and Ustadi had to make the saves he had to make. But they weren't exposed or stretched because they were not playing the role of we have to take the
Favorites.
game to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that plays a part. I think there's other things that play, that are elements as well. Like there's certain things, injuries and absences that happen that force Javier Mascherano to do things differently than he would have done. Like I think I said this with Ken Levica on the last podcast, the voice of Inter Miami. Um, I mean, if Gonzalo Lujan was healthy for this tournament, he's probably starting in the opener, right? He's at least starting that game, right? But because he wasn't healthy, Mascherano had to do something different. And he started Toto Aviles next to Peluca Falcon. Toto Aviles gets a yellow card, almost a red card. And you're laughing because of what happened in the PSG game, I'm sure. But he takes him off at halftime because of what's happening in the match. Puts Ian Frey at center back. I think it's the first time we've seen Ian Frey at center back under Mascherano. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we've seen him in different moments, but first time we've seen him for a lengthy spell at center back. And he played fantastically there. So much so that he got the start in the next game against Porto, played fantastically again until he gets injured and then has to miss the rest of the tournament. But under normal circumstances, Ian Frey's not playing center back for Inter Miami, which I mean, I think is something that they should be considering a lot more. So I think also certain things happened to maybe open Mascherano's eyes as to what is best in terms of roles, what's best for the team, what could be best for the function and funcionamiento. So I think a lot of things played into Inter Miami having a good showing at this Club World Cup. Um, Styles of play absolutely play a part as well. Porto and Palmeiras, they weren't necessarily teams that were as direct and as physically gifted as maybe an Al-Ali or as maybe some teams are in Major League Soccer. Look, Inter Miami has a team with four-star players that are close to 40 years old, and they are the four most talented players on the team. But physically, they're not at a high level. Physically, right?
And I think if you have something to criticize Inter Miami for in this club work on, one of the things is the physicality of this team. If this team had gone on, they wouldn't have they wouldn't have any players left to play. And that for me is something that they have to work on, because it's not possible that Yannick Bright or David Ruiz didn't play a minute in this tournament. I
Yannick Bright also didn't play a minute in this
Yeah, Yannick Bright,
tournament.
and I said David Ruiz. Bright and David Ruiz didn't play a minute in this tournament. No, Allen got injured. Ian Frey
Against
got
PSG.
injured, and all of them got injured. And Gonzalo Luján is also injured from the same thing, muscle injuries, and that for me tells you that Inter Miami needs to up their training. They need to change something, because if they had got on in this tournament, they wouldn't have enough players to even put on the
I mean,
bench.
it's questionable how they're gonna face the coming weeks in the
Exactly,
MLS
the
season, right?
becoming weeks, because you have a lot of injured players,
The
and
roster's
it's
thin.
preoccupying, because they are all muscle injuries.
Preocupante, which would be
Preocupante, preocupante,
worrying.
worrying
Preoccupying
word.
would be like, oh, my mind's on something else. But I got your point.
Yeah,
Translating for the people. Translating for the
it is for me one of the biggest rights, and that in this highest level, you saw, unfortunately, the injuries that Inter Miami had, and it's because of the physicality that you need to be in tip top shape to play at this level. You don't of course you see muscle injuries, like the one Palmeiras player
There's a
had
lot of,
in Tadeo Allende's
but
goal.
I think,
But Inter
Andrea,
Miami is just too much for me. I
but
think if
I think
that's
part
it's
of it,
something that they have to change.
I think part of it, and I think Noah Allen in the game against PSG where he goes out with what looks like a hamstring injury.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just overuse, right? Because they've been playing a lot of games. There's been rotation, but with injuries and things piling up, especially in this tournament, the roster was very thin. It was essentially the same, 11 to 14, maybe 15 players that saw the
Yeah,
field
Franco,
for
but
30 minutes.
okay,
I
you
mean, it's
had in
overused. They
you
played a
talk
lot.
PSG and Vitinha, Nuno Mendes, and Joao
Andrea,
Neves.
but it's a
They
different
played
level.
the Champions League. They played the Liga
It's a
Francesa.
different level,
They
Andrea.
went and played with Portugal, and then they came into
Are
the
we
Club
going? Are
World
we
Cup.
going to say that conditioning wise, Inter Miami is at the same level as
No, of
PSG?
course, but
No.
it's something that Inter Miami needs to take from this tournament, is that they have to up their conditioning level, because you cannot be missing too many players of your roster just because of muscle injuries. It's completely unacceptable. And let's also speak on David Martinez, who had also a muscle injury and didn't play in this Club World Cup, and who is now leaving back to River Plate
Right,
without
his
having
loan is expired.
played in this Club World Cup. So if you analyze, too many players from Inter Miami are having this. Even Jordi Alba had a problem with
That
his
was before
muscle.
the tournament. I mean,
Exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I do think the intensity plays a part. The
Yeah.
intensity level of the games. It's
They
not
were
what you
not.
get in MLS.
Yeah.
It's not what you get in
100%.
MLS.
Yes.
Like Noah Allen, Benjamin Kremaski, Fede Redondo, Ian Frey, they haven't played this type
This
of
level. Yes.
game
And that's why also
in
Fede came
quick
out injured.
succession.
Also came out injured in one of the games, and I think that's something. If they get better on something, I think that has to be on top of their list, because especially these young players cannot be going out like that. Also, Telasco, who had, for me, a very good showing, as
Had a
I
very
was
good World
saying,
Cup.
he had to come off because he couldn't make it to 90 minutes. And for me, it's unacceptable that Messi, who is almost 40 years old, and Luis Suarez, who is on one knee, can play 90 minutes, and the other guys who are younger, 15 years younger than Luis Suarez, and cannot go by a complete game and a complete tournament without getting this many injuries. So for me, that's something that the team needs to change.
I think it goes back to MLS though. I think you know, like, yeah, you can play every 3 days in MLS, right? And we've seen Inter Miami play every 3 days for much of this year, 3-4 days. But the intensity of those games are not what they were at the Club World Cup. And again, a lot of things um, uh, came together for there to be issues because you had injuries to Yannick Bright. David Ruiz hasn't been healthy for a while now. So your options in central midfield are very limited. And then you have to go essentially to the same two or three guys for these high intensity matches. And then they start picking up injuries from overuse or from not having the ability to bring in somebody else. And again, this is where you talk about bigger picture MLS, where rosters are not as deep. There's a drop off in levels once you go from the first bit of the roster to the middle of the roster to the end of the roster. There's different levels, and so I think it all comes together to create a problem for Inter Miami. I do really question. I want to say this here as we get to the hour mark of the show. As good a Club World Cup as Inter Miami had, and I'm not saying this to be uh, pessimistic, but I have real questions as to whether what we saw at the Club World Cup translates back to MLS starting this weekend against CF Montreal. Because look, CF Montreal
It's
may be
gonna
the
be depressing. It's depressing for me. It's depressing for me.
no,
Thankfully,
but
this weekend,
I don't
this
mean
weekend, I have not. I have to go and work tomorrow, and I don't have to cover Inter Miami Montreal. But for me, it's depressing to going from the Club World Cup then to go back to MLS to play against the
sure.
last place,
So,
that team that doesn't play and that fired their coach,
but
fired three
that's one
coaches
small
in
game.
the season,
That's one small game.
and
I'm
then New England
talking,
Revolution. Wow, woo,
but
motivation.
that's so. I don't disagree with you, but before we get to this weekend in more detail, I think from the style standpoint, and again, maybe not this weekend because Montreal's lower level, bottom of the table in the Eastern Conference. Maybe
Should
they
be in
won't
third
put up
division.
much of a fight. But I have questions as to whether Inter Miami, because of the style of play of the teams in MLS by and large, which again are more physical, more athletic, if Inter Miami is now going to be able to come back to MLS and play at this level that we saw them at the Club World Cup. I think in MLS, where teams are more athletic, Inter Miami is going to be challenged where they are weakest again, which is the physical attributes, the ability to have legs and chase. And again, Inter Miami is one of the favorites in MLS, so they're going to have the ball again. They're going to be the favorites. Look, if they can translate the confidence gain from this tournament and continue to play at a high level, then I think they have a good chance of shooting up the standings and getting back to the top of the Eastern Conference. But I have questions as to whether that'll be the case against teams that will welcome them to attack and then look to hit on the counterattack to see if they have the legs to put out those fires. If Peluca Falcon can get back, if Chelo Weigand can get back, if Jordi Alba can get back. Noah Allen probably is going to miss some time because he picked up a hamstring injury. So, you're going to probably have to rely on Toto Aviles again. So I have questions. I have real questions. I have real concerns as
That's
to
gonna
if this
be
will
one of the
translate.
challenges of Mascherano, like Tata Martino had last year when Messi and Suarez left for Copa America, and everyone was like, "What would this team do?" And Tata Martino showed for me the best style of play without Messi and Luis Suarez in that time, right? And let's see with Mascherano, because this now turning the page from the Club World Cup and the dream that was for this team, it's gonna be difficult to see how that translates now to MLS, because the reality is that they did good in the Club World Cup, but what are they going to do now? They didn't win the Club World Cup. Going to a round of 16 doesn't give you a trophy, not even a participation trophy, and now it's the real deal. What is this team going to do? I think they have enough time, thankfully, because of MLS calendar. They have enough time that they could miss a couple of games, trying to figure it out, playing with players that didn't have a lot of playtime in the Club World Cup. Um, for example, if you ask me, I don't expect Messi to play Saturday, right? It would be
You're jumping ahead, Andrea. You're
it
jumping
would
ahead.
be it
We're
would
talking
be
about Inter Miami translating their confidence and their performance levels to MLS. Do you
yeah,
think
but
it can be done? Generally speaking, I'm not talking about necessarily
uh,
just this weekend.
I I I don't think it could be. Let me find
While
the
you think
correct
about that,
wording.
Nick Smith in the
Mhm.
comment section says it's going to go back to us not being able to score against the low block.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to translate. I was trying to say, especially, um, of course, we were talking about Montreal and they being the worst team in the league right now. But those that type of play exactly is where Inter Miami struggles a lot, and for me it's gonna be hard, especially these first two games against Montreal and against New England Revolution. It's gonna be hard because of the style of play in MLS, as you were saying, but also the motivation, because players will not have that motivation. Tell me, what motivation will a player have to score against Montreal? It After coming
I
from the World Cup, I mean.
agree. I agree that, and I talked about this on on a podcast I was on yesterday, a CF Montreal podcast, Andy Coronado, who said shout out here at the start of this show. I was on his show yesterday, and I did talk about that. I agree with you fully that Mascherano's job this week is to find a way to reset his players
Mm-hmm.
mentally and emotionally for the challenges ahead, because they were at a very big high with
Mm-hmm.
all the world watching at the Club World Cup. And now in an instant,
It's
they have
gone.
to switch gears and come back to
Travel.
MLS play where
Mm-hmm.
there's lengthy travel, there's ugly football.
And
Um,
especially where you're gonna play at the same time that PSG and Bayern Munich are playing that
I don't
the
think they care
other
about that. I don't think that
round
factors in.
no, because you think, oh, I know that in reality they would have never done it there, they would have never gotten past PSG, but players maybe thought, oh, we would should have been there, we should have been playing Bayern Munich or whatever. They're gonna think about that because they are professionals that are motivated by winning. And I don't think Montreal motivates them a lot. And I don't think either
Right, especially
New
Messi,
England Revolution.
Suarez, like they're
Yes.
gonna be like, "Oh yeah, we're up for this." Here we go
Uh
back
huh.
to the grind of the rest of the 32
Traveling
game regular
6 hours
season.
to Montreal and then coming back. That's gonna be hard. And
That's the
it's
short term. That's the
the
short
short
term
term.
challenge.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
this weekend,
Short term
I
challenge.
think longer term it goes back to the style of play. Look, if there's,
Yes.
I know maybe we're questioning it because we've seen it this year, but look, if there's one positive to point to, it's that before the Club World Cup, and again, you could use maybe motivation as a factor. The two games Inter Miami played before the Club World Cup, they played better in and they won. Now, again, level of opposition wasn't great. The Columbus Crew, even that lopsided victory for Inter Miami, had their backup goalkeeper in who was horrendous. Horrible, horrible, horrible. But anyway, but I mean, again, if you want to look at it on the positive side, Inter Miami has to take the confidence they have
and
and
build on it. But
build on that.
it's gonna
Absolutely.
be hard for me. That's the bottom line for me, is that we're gonna see how Mascherano really is as a coach right now, because you have to take all of the factors that we have talked about all this hour, about the Club World Cup, they're showing there, about their eliminations, about their physicality or lack of physicality, everything, and they have to turn around the page and go back to MLS, try to better themselves in the
In a very
standings
busy July, a
in a
very
busy
busy July.
July. And then you get Leagues Cup, that seriously, o sea, like, I don't even know what to say, but it's gonna be hard, and I think we're gonna see a good job or a bad job from Mascherano, but it will be, I don't know, but it would be a good test for him. I began this year criticizing him and criticizing the style of play Inter Miami had, especially before those two games against Montreal and who are the other ones? New York Red Bulls. I don't remember which. Columbus, and who was the other? I don't remember. It seems like 3 years ago to me. I don't even know. But for
NYCFC
me,
they played?
huh?
I think they played NYCFC.
Yeah, that's and New York. That's what I think in my mind, but I might be wrong.
No, I think
But
it was NYCFC in the opener.
it could be, they could he could build from here, because his image for me, my opinion of me as a coach changed a little bit in this Club World Cup, because he was very calm. They didn't give him extra, even though he's Messi's friend and all of that we've talked about. He didn't get any extra people. He didn't get anything extra. He even lost players, and he kept that team going. So I guess that's
That
says
is
a
that is a
lot of him.
testament, yeah.
Yeah, that says a lot of him, that he was able to pull this team through, and I give him a total props for that, because that was big for him and for his career, because he was very questioned, especially for the first half of the year that Inter Miami had, that it was not a good
But
first
I
half.
think it goes back to, again, if you're a team, right? The old saying is teams adopt their coach's personality. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Mascherano nunca ha sido, o no te digo que no ha sido tremendo jugador, pero nunca fue jugador así en el ataque, que, okay, siempre ha
Mm-hmm.
sido jugador más defensivo. He's been a
Mm-hmm.
defensive-minded player. He wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
number 10 or a goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
He was a defensive midfielder to a center back, the less glamorous
Mm-hmm.
positions, right? You're not necessarily the fan favorites because of your ability to create. You're more of a role player that does the job defensively. And I think this team galvanized together in that underdog role, in that less glamorous role, which again fits Mascherano's personality, right? So
Exactly.
I
Now
think
let's
it plays
see
to it. Now it
without that.
changes. Now it
Exactly.
changes.
Yeah.
Now it's about
And it's his
being
job.
that amazing
Again.
team that is
Exactly.
able to break down teams, that can carry the game, that is dictating the tempo, that can create chances. Now the roles change, and
100%.
that's the
Exactly.
job. His
That's
job
his
now
job.
is to
Exactly.
refine those.
That is going to be his biggest test because we saw them do this in the Club World Cup. We expect them then to come to MLS. Of course, we have talked about MLS is but we expect him to do better than what he was showing in the first half of the year, right? Especially after losing with Vancouver in CONCACAF. That was an MLS team, and I think we expect from now on from him to do better in this league. So it's gonna be a big test for him, especially and for the players also because listen, if we see Telasco Segovia yet again fall off like he was doing in some of the games that Inter Miami La Racha that they had, it's gonna be preoccupying because then
No, preoccupying, concerning, Andrea,
concerning whatever
concerning.
is gonna be concerning because then he signed for years in this team. So you're telling me that the MLS doesn't motivate him a lot. That's gonna be on Mascherano, and it's gonna be on a lot of these players that have something to prove because Messi, Busquets, and Suarez and Jordi Alba don't have anything left to prove.
Let's listen to Mascherano. It's a 2-minute quote, so you can get some water. After that, we'll start to wrap things up with a couple of topics. Of course, we're going to have to talk about Messi and his future. We will get to that. But listen to Mascherano as we really, really start to wrap up the Club World Cup conversation here and start to more further transition into MLS play.
Nosotros teníamos muy claro que a la hora de competir podíamos competir hasta un cierto nivel. Hoy, al final, tarde o temprano, la realidad te lo demuestra, pero sobre todo orgulloso de los chicos, de los jugadores, por el torneo que han hecho. Creo que hemos estado a la altura de las expectativas que había sobre nosotros. Y bueno, nada, lamentablemente en el partido de hoy, cuando tomás un gol tan temprano contra un equipo como este, es muy difícil. Lamentablemente lo tomamos de una manera que, digamos, demasiado fácil, es decir, en una pelota parada. Me hubiese gustado que si nos tenían que marcar pronto hubiese sido de otra manera. Pero bueno, más allá de eso y de la avalancha que fue el primer tiempo, creo que bueno, el segundo tiempo claramente ellos bajaron un poco el ritmo, pudimos jugar más, pudimos demostrar lo que normalmente hacemos en la MLS y nada, un poco eso, Michel. Te vuelvo a repetir, en conclusión, orgulloso de lo que han hecho o lo que ha hecho este grupo de jugadores y nada, de ahora en adelante mirar hacia el futuro y ver si logramos rentabilizar toda esta experiencia, como hablábamos quizás un poco ayer, para lo que son las competiciones más domésticas nuestras y más normales y donde nosotros quizás las expectativas son otras.
So I'll paraphrase for the non-Spanish speakers very quickly. He said he was, proud that they exceeded expectations. He's very proud of this group of players. But in the end, reality sooner or later will show you where you're at. He said they could compete to a certain level, but that sooner or later reality is going to show you what level. And obviously he was referring to the PSG game. Went on to say that, the question now is, how do they use this to carry them through the rest of the MLS season and the Leagues Cup, the other competitions that they still have this year? Andrea, before we fully close the door on the Club World Cup, which I thought was fascinating, obviously with Inter Miami's results, but just the tournament itself, I thought was fascinating. Give me your podium, tu podio, top 3 Inter Miami players. And I will also ask the listeners and the viewers to also partake in this exercise. Give me your top 3 Inter Miami players. You have to go from gold to bronze. If you want to throw in an honorable mention, you can, but you have to. You want me to go first? What do you think?
Okay, yeah, go first.
All right. I know how people are gonna say here. Oscar Ustari, gold,
I agree.
gold. Lionel Messi, the silver, and the bronze. Velasco Segovia. Honorable mention. Tougher. Oh, that's my podium. That's it. I'm just gonna leave my podium there. I'm leaving my podium there.
I think I agree with the players in your podium, but in a different order. I would say Ustari, then Telasco Segovia, and then Messi for
Okay.
me. And honorable mention, I would say Noah Allen and Ian Frey for me.
Ian Frey's definitely in my a candidate for honorable mention. I just think he didn't. He ended up not playing a whole lot over the 4 games. Right, he played
yeah, but I think
second
when
half
he played the
and then
four
one full game.
in the games that he did, he looked a lot better than, for example, Tomas Aviles or
Oh, absolutely.
Maximiliano Falcon. And
actually, Peluca had. You know what? Peluca's not a bad shout for.
He had a good game for Alali and Porto, but
he definitely messed up against Palmeiras on the
yes,
second goal. Terrible header headed clearance by Peluca.
Yes,
but I think on the balance of things, Inter Miami doesn't get to the stage that they got without Peluca Falcon.
I think, but for me, the best player was Ustari. I have criticized him a lot, but he showed in this Club World Cup that he was the most important player in this team, because if not, Alali would have scored at least 5 goals in that first half. He had that penalty save, then he had the offside goal that didn't count.
That doesn't count. But it is a good save.
And then he had 3 or 4 other more saves that were there. Maximiliano Falcon also took a ball from the line. If you remember that first game against Alali, that could have been 5-0 easily in that first half. So I think Ustari most definitely deserves that first place. He also had some saves against Porto and against Palmeiras especially, and he had good saves in against PSG in that second half. I think he was the best player in this team. And then, of course, for me, Telasco Segovia. I was going to ask you your of the goals, the 3 goals that Inter Miami scored, which one was your favorite? Of the 4 goals that Inter Miami scored. And for me, that's why I ended up choosing Telasco Segovia over Messi, because for me the best goal that Inter Miami scored was that Telasco Segovia goal against Porto. For me, that was the best goal that they scored in this tournament. Messi's goal was pretty, but it was not the best. We've seen a couple of free kicks that are better than his goal, like John Arias, for example. And then Luis Suarez was also good and pretty goal, but I really like that.
I liked all 4 goals, to be honest with you. I liked all 4 goals.
Yeah,
different ways, but I liked all 4 goals.
Yeah.
But again, analyzing the games, one comes off a free kick. Mm-hmm. The other, that's Messi's. The Allende goal comes off of very direct counter-attacking play from defending a set piece to the other end. Segovia's is the one that comes from some good build-up, right? Some good build-up, especially some combination from Chelo Weigand and Tadeo Allende down the right. And Luis Suarez is just a solo effort where him, bulldozing his way, bullying his way forward.
Yeah. I choose Telasco's because I think that's the goal that could compete with some other goals that have been.
It was a good goal, and it was with his weaker foot. So that's definitely. I don't know which were the best goals.
Oh, for me, if I tell you, there have been a lot, but I remember from the top of my head.
I'm talking about Inter Miami.
Inter Miami. Oh,
do you say Segovia?
I would say
probably
100%.
Probably Messi's free kick, because it was the winner, will get a lot of love, but
but we have seen a lot in the tournament. We have seen more free kick goals that are better than Messi's.
Ed Bartra.
Messi is Messi.
Ed Bartra says, "Say what you want about Suarez, but his contributions deserve a mention." I don't agree with that one, my Peruvian brother. I don't agree with that one, because yes, he turned back the clock. He had the goal and the assist in the Palmeiras game. But in the other matches, I mean, he looked as rough as he
Against
has
Italy,
in
he looked
MLS.
the
He
worst, I
looked
think.
rough, man. He looked rough. I mean, he the one against PSG where Messi
Oh,
floats
and
in
at PSG. Oh,
a
yeah.
beautiful pass
Mhm.
over the top that Suarez should at least get that on frame. He scuffs it and doesn't get any power or placement on it. Completely wasted the chance. That will be another storyline to watch as MLS play resumes. But that's my podium for you, Andrea. And
Yeah,
honorable
I think
mention,
we
you can
agree.
throw Peluca, you can throw in Redondo, you can throw in Ian
No, then you're
Frey.
throwing a lot of players.
I said honorable mention.
Honorable mention.
No,
Honorable
no,
mention.
then
No.
Peluca, then Peluca. I'm
No
going
vamos a
Peluca.
dar trofeos por
Then
participación.
I'm going
Tampoco.
Peluca. I'm going Peluca.
Tampoco.
And
Peluca,
listen,
then, okay, then
a lot of our audience, this is what I love the Miami Total Football Radio. I didn't do it at the beginning. I'll do it here at the hour and 20 mark. Miami Total Football Radio viewers and commenters, because they're not just Messi craze. They're not drunk in love with just Messi. Look at the comment section. Bruni Sen says his podium goes Ustari, Messi, Allen. Tom says Ustari, Messi, Redondo. Brad says Ustari, Messi, Segovia, surprise, Redondo. So right there, I've put on 3 different comments and nobody had Messi first, in addition to you and I. See, it's not all a Messi love fest here. We talk about the good and the bad, the good and the bad. Sorry,
yeah,
Messi.
100%.
Sorry, Messi fanboys. That's just how it is. All right, Andrea, very quickly, CF Montreal. The big question is, will Messi, Suarez, and the like play this weekend? We do have availability on July 4th of all days.
Good luck.
To return to practice. I will be there. I will be there. Before I begin my festivities.
will be there before he parties the night away.
I will bring you guys some updates there. I think that they play. This is not inside information. It's just my supposition. I think they play, and I think the reason why they play is because there's really nobody else behind them. The team is so thin that they have to count on them. Yes, you got to travel to Canada, which is another flight, and again, you have to manage the mental and emotional aspects of it if you're Mascherano, to motivate your guys, to get them to reset. But I think that they play. So with that said, I give you my predicted starting lineup. I will go with Oscar Ustari in goal, Chelo Weigand, Otto Aviles, Peluca Falcon, and Jordi Alba as the back 4. And Noah Allen dealing with an injury. Your midfield 4 from right to left is the usual. It will be, in my opinion, Tadeo Allende, Sergio Busquets, Fede Redondo, and Telasco Segovia. Up top, Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez. That is my predicted starting 11. I don't know if you agree with that.
I don't agree with that. I think we're gonna see a lot of changes in the lineup.
Who? All right, so give me.
Players.
No, give me the whole thing. Give me the whole 4-4-2. Dame. Ustari,
yes, Ustari. Or maybe we see Ustari rest. I could see Jarbro coming in for Ustari, just for this game because
maybe
it doesn't matter. Then I could see the Fantastic Four. One of them that I could see playing is Jordi Alba because he didn't play all the games. Okay. So I think he will be present.
Who's your center back tandem?
Then the center backs, I think it has to be Maxi and Toto Aviles because there's no one else unless you bring Ryan Saylor in with Ian Frey and Noah Allen injured and Gonzalo Lujan injured. You have no one else left, so it has to be those two. And
Chelo's gonna start at right back. There's nobody else.
Exactly, Chelo's gonna start at the right back because. Okay. You don't have any more players. I think
so. None of your back 4 and goalkeeper are different than mine. So there's no rotation, no difference there. All right, midfield 4.
Then in the midfield, I think we're gonna see some changes. I think Redondo is going to stay in. I agree with you because he came off in a lot of the games. But I think we can see Benjamin Cremaschi. We can even see Santiago Morales come in, get some minutes against
Morales
Montreal.
starts. And then he will not start. No way.
And then we can see Fafa also starting this game to rest Tadeo Allende because he played all the games in the Club World Cup. So I can see that being one of the changes.
Wait, but give me your midfield 4 from right to left. I bet. Who's on the right?
To tell you the truth, I don't see Busquets playing. So I can tell you that maybe he gets Redondo gets his place, and then you see the other guys that I told you.
So Redondo, Cremaschi,
and Redondo and Kremaski.
So, but who plays on the right?
Uh, I could see, you don't believe me, I could see Santi Morales.
No way. Fafa before Santi. Fafa before Santi.
Well, Fafa, yeah, you can play Fafa on the right, yes. You can play Fafa on the right, and then Telasco on the left.
And then up top, is it Messi and Suarez or no?
I think this is a game for Lionel Ando.
Okay, but who plays with him? No más decir Santi Morales, por favor. I don't have anything against Santi Morales. I just don't see that happening.
I just don't see Messi playing. I think we're gonna see Santi Morales. We can even see Tyler Hall. We're gonna see all those guys.
Bruni says Baltasar.
Brad
also says I want to see a midfield without Busquets. It's time for Baltasar to start. Maybe. That's actually not a bad shout. If there are changes, I think the changes that you could see, like we kind of discussed, I think is Fafa and Baltasar coming in.
I see Fafa coming in 100%.
Fafa, Baltasar coming in.
For Tadeo Allende, Fafa.
I could see Allen Obondo. If they're gonna, I'm saying if, I don't predict this because I already said my prediction. But if the starters or if the Cuatro Fantásticos get a rest, then I think you could see maybe Allen Obondo with Velasco Segovia behind him, or maybe Fafa behind him. And then on the wings, you could see something like either Fafa and Baltasar, or Baltasar and Benjamin Kremaski. I mean, it also depends. Tomorrow we'll find out if David Ruiz and Yannick Bright are finally healthy again. We haven't seen them. We've seen them getting closer and closer and working, but haven't made the progress to join the team and team training. Maybe they're there now.
If they're available, it would be easier because, of course, they would get some minutes. I don't know if they would start, but they would get some minutes, definitely.
So there could be some rotation in that.
I think we're going to see rotation, especially with players like I said, Suarez, not the back four because they don't have. Right. They actually don't have. That's why that's unchanged, and we are in agreement with that. But I can definitely see Luis Suarez, Tadeo Allende, Messi resting, Busquets resting this game, and maybe coming in the second half, making the trip, but not starting. I could see them. Some coming of them, like bench. I said, Jordi Alba, and the other ones coming off the bench. Okay. But it would be intelligent because Tadeo Allende played all those games, Segovia played all those games, and Luis Suarez and Messi. So we'll see. Like you said, people need to be watching for your social media tomorrow because you're going to be in practice and you're going to have the
international media is going to be gone now, right? You're only going to have us again, the few of us locally to
Franco is going to be there tomorrow. He's going to represent Jose and I because we will be dancing samba and dancing Arabic music tomorrow in Orlando if the climate permits it, right? Because
are you guys driving up or you're watching from home?
No, we're going to go. But with a
commitment to the cause,
reporters, yes. So it's gonna be nice, but a little bit of dreaming until I have to go back and share with MLS again, right?
Tom says my prediction is that Aviles will try to last for 40 minutes and gets a red card. Then we'll see Saylor for the next 2.5 games. Look, we do have to talk about that. We have to. I'm sorry, Toto. Toto.
I have been saying this.
Algo no está bien acá. Algo no está bien acá.
A lot of time. It's amazing, Toto Aviles. It's just. I don't even know what to tell you in this sign, but he is 100% not showing any advance, of him getting better. He is really not showing him.
Pierde los papeles. Like mentally, I think he's just too careless, too regular, and muy imprudente. He comes in against PSG, and within I think 30 seconds gets a yellow card. Within 30 seconds, and then later he scored an own goal. For me, look, the own goal is a bit unlucky. And you could say that it's bad positioning or poor play, and he's not a good center back. I think it's more has to do with being, a little bit unlucky there. Media altura, the ball hits him in like mid level.
It was a good.
It's hard, right? It's hard to play that ball, especially if you're retreating. Now, obviously, the idea is to clear it, not score it in the back of your own goal. But I thought that was a bit unlucky. But the yellow card is, it's inexcusable, man. Like on a late rash sliding challenge shortly after you came in. Just like Andrea can't fight the allegations that she only shows up after Inter Miami losses, Toto Aviles can't fight the allegations that he's a yellow card machine. It's his new nickname, It's his new nickname for me. Máquina de tarjeta amarilla. Una máquina de tarjeta amarilla.
It is amazing. Toto Aviles needs to work on that because I don't know how he keeps on getting chances. Of course, we know because everyone is injured, but he shouldn't. He shouldn't. He shouldn't be getting chances.
Una máquina de tarjetas amarillas.
It
It's his
is
new nickname.
incredible.
His new
Incredible.
nickname. Yellow card machine.
Incredible.
Brad says Obando's paid like $500,000. What's the point of having him in the squad if he doesn't play? We're getting scammed at this point. Well, we'll see. If Andrea predicts correctly, we'll see him this weekend. I don't think we'll see him as a starter, but
that's something we need to talk about. Also, the salary.
No. We don't like Andrea. We have one more talking point, and it's not going to be Obando.
I want to be Messi's friend. I want to be paid $900,000 like Ustari gets to be paid.
Well, that's
Please,
what we
Messi, become my friend.
We have to wrap up the show. We saved the best. Maybe I don't know if it's the best topic, but maybe the most interesting topic or the topic a lot of people want to hear about, and that's Messi's future. There's been a lot of rumors in recent days. Some reports saying that he's considering a loan to Europe for 6 months before playing in MLS. Others saying he's just going to sign with Inter Miami in return for 2026. Others saying maybe he goes just for a couple months at the start of the year to Europe or somewhere else. Andrea, I don't think we have, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we have any inside information to share, or not much inside information to share other than what's already been reported. But what are your thoughts? What do you think happens with Lionel Messi's future? What do you think will happen in the pretty much short term? Don't give me 2027 and beyond. I just want to know short term.
I think it's intelligent for him to sign a new contract with Inter Miami, but I do believe there are some holdups because I do believe he wants to go and play somewhere else before the World Cup. And we had talked about this with Jose on the podcast because obviously he wants to play the World Cup. That is his goal. And I think he's just now realizing that if he stays in MLS and just with MLS level of play, it's not going to be enough for him to get to the World Cup like he wants to, because I don't think he wants to get to a World Cup and be that Messi that can't run anymore, that is not the same physically and all of that. So I can see Messi, the holdup being, as it has been reported, that Messi wants to go somewhere else during the off season at least. I know Inter Miami are trying to do everything to sign him, especially because they have a new stadium opening up in Miami next year, and they need Lionel Messi. I think Inter Miami are in Inter Miami, Jorge Mas and his brother. I think they're in a tough position because Messi holds the balls in his court. He has all the power. He knows that Inter Miami needs him. He knows that Jorge Mas and his group needs him to fill that stadium in Miami, because without Messi, even if you have Jordi Alba or Busquets, or even if you sign the other three, the stadium is not going to be filled if it's not Messi. And Messi knows that.
Messi's not going anywhere. Messi's not going anywhere.
But I think there is some truth for that he wants to play other places before the World Cup.
Summer Sunshine with a late comment says, of course, Andrea's here today because Inter Miami lost. Angry emojis. I told you, you're not beating the allegations, Andrea. I don't think Messi's going anywhere. Like I know there's been consideration from his camp. I mean, I've read the reports, but I've also heard from people around the club. There's been consideration for him to potentially go or start next year at a club in Europe. Maybe that still happens, but I don't see it being the first 6 months of 2026 to get ready for the World Cup. Now, this is supposition. This part is supposition. It's not information. I don't think he risks potentially getting injured playing at a high intensity level like in Europe, where the demand is higher, where you're playing every 3 days. But again, at a higher level, he's not a young pup anymore. I don't see him leaving South Florida. In general, if he goes somewhere else, it'll be for January and February of next year, and that's at best. You know, we've seen those type of loans before. David Beckham did it. Thierry Henry did it. Landon Donovan did it when they were playing. They would go to Everton, AC Milan, Arsenal, just for a couple months, just to start the year with some games abroad, and then come back to MLS and begin the season here. Maybe something like that happens. But even then, I would have question marks. I think he sticks around. I think that contract will be signed. Actually, I know that the sales team, the Inter Miami sales team, has been calling very adamantly lately for people to renew their season tickets. I think part of it is because they know the announcement's coming. I mean, again, I've said for a while that the timeline for the announcement was in the summer, once the stadium season tickets sales like coincides with that announcement of season tickets for next year going on sale to the general public, just to ramp up the demand, right? Supply and demand. Well, you ramp up the demand for next year's season tickets if you say Messi is returning. So, I fully believe he'll be here next year. Whether he starts the year with Inter Miami or not, we'll see. I would venture to guess more likely yes than no, but if it's a no, then I think it'll be 2 months tops with somebody in Europe, and then he returns to Inter Miami for the start of the season, because he also can't risk injury playing 6 months at a higher level somewhere else. So where there's promotion relegation, where the stakes are higher, I don't think he risks that. But that's my opinion. Andrea, we're going to leave it there. I feel like you have a lot more to say, but we're going to leave it there.
No, it is that.
I hear the fireworks going off left and right here. I don't know if the mic's picking them up or not, but there's fireworks left and right. It's almost July 4th. We've gone long. I promise you now that the MLS season will be back in full swing, that we will be back to hour and 10 episodes tops. It might be even less. Oh, there is one last thing I wanted to say. Because Andrea at the beginning of the show says, I like Portugal. So you're also not helping the allegations that you're a Cristiano Ronaldo fan there, Andrea, at the beginning of the show. But I will say this. Look at this. This is to help refute the idea that she hates Inter Miami. Look at that. Look at Andrea and Jose. Look at that. In Inter Miami gear before the Copa de Medios in front of the Inter Miami logo with two big smiles across their faces. Ajicita. Look at another picture. Look at Jose and Andrea. Happy as can be at Chase Stadium in Inter Miami gear. Full on smiles. That is not the face of someone who hates Inter Miami. She's critical. Impartial.
People are insane.
I mean, you did say you like Portugal.
What does that have to do with it?
Portugal and Argentina.
When I talk about football, it's football. It is what it is. It is the truth.
But Portugal and Argentina have kind of
who are accustomed. Portugal and Argentina have never played.
No.
People
I'm not saying they
that
have a
are
rivalry.
keyboard warriors. People are keyboard warriors, see ghosts everywhere and are insane, and I just typically don't listen.
So you just hit us with the Mascerano. Hay dos fútbols. El fútbol real y el fútbol de la internet. Oh my gosh. Andrea,
yes. I learned something from Mascerano. I learned something from Mascerano, exactly. So it is what it is. It is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is. All right, we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week. Look, Inter Miami has a very busy July. They have 2 games. I used to love trying to get a show in between every game. I don't think it's going to be possible in July. We'll see. I doubt it. We'll try to aim for 1 show a week to provide you with all the latest news updates. So I don't know if we'll have one at the start of next week or tail end of next week. We'll see. If I can get one done in each window, then maybe, but might be tough. But we'll be back, and we'll be back on a shorter time crunch. I promise you guys. I promise my co-host, and I promise you listeners and viewers, because I don't want to keep you guys this long. I know some of you love it and stick around, but I want to try to keep it a little tighter. I know I've been saying that for years, but we're gonna make a real good effort. I'm gonna start muting people, yellow carding, red carding. I'm gonna do the whole thing. That's the only way to run a tight ship. All right. So for everyone tuning in, listening, watching, have a good July 4th. Have a great holiday weekend. Don't forget Inter Miami plays on Saturday. There is MLS games back in action. And we'll be, of course, watching, covering, providing all the updates on social media. So for Andrea Llanes, I am Franco Panizo. You have been listening or watching Miami Total Football Radio, the show. We will talk to you guys again in a few days.